The stars above the ruined colony burned with strange light, painted by the deadly glow of alien plasma fire. The attack came without warning. One moment the sky was dark and quiet, filled with the cold shine of faraway suns, and the next, a storm of energy swept across the horizon. It was not just an attack, it was a declaration. The aliens had come to erase, to burn, to remind humanity of its so-called weakness. Across the battlefield, alien warships hovered in the void, their weapons glowing like molten suns. Plasma cannons unleashed rivers of destruction, each strike enough to melt towers, crumble defenses, and turn soldiers into shadows on the walls. Cities that had taken centuries to build collapsed in seconds. Alien commanders sitting inside their crystal ships smiled with pride. This was how they had conquered hundreds of worlds. Swift, brutal, unstoppable. They expected fear. They expected surrender. But the human did not blink. Among the flames stood a figure in dark armor, tall, still, and strangely calm. The ground shook as plasma blasts hammered the earth, but his boots did not move. Heat waves bent the air, painting the world in red and gold, yet his eyes did not close. The aliens focused their weapons on him, curious at first, then annoyed. They fired again and again, until the ground was nothing but glowing glass. Yet, through the smoke, the human remained. His armor cracked in places, scorched by the fire, but he stood as if nothing had touched him. The alien soldiers exchanged nervous glances. No creature had ever survived such firepower, not without screaming, not without collapsing. They whispered in their tongue, voices trembling, as fear slipped into their cold blood. This human was supposed to break. This human was supposed to die. Instead, he looked at them with eyes that did not show fear, only silence. Legends had always followed humanity like shadows across the galaxy. Old stories spoke of a species that grew strong on a dangerous world, where storms tore the land, beasts hunted the weak, and survival demanded fire in the heart. Many aliens laughed at those tales. They called them myths, exaggerated by frightened traitors. But now, watching this man stand untouched beneath their fire, those legends began to feel real. The alien commander, sitting high in his glass throne, ordered more. He demanded every cannon fire at once. Plasma storms rained down, shaking the very bones of the earth. Light swallowed the horizon, bright enough to blind, loud enough to make mountains tremble. Even the alien soldiers felt unease, as if the sky itself might split apart. And when the fire cleared, they saw him again. The human did not move. He stepped forward slowly, his boot pressing onto shattered ground. The sound was small compared to the thunder of battle, yet it echoed in the silence. He did not raise a weapon. He did not shout. He only walked, steady, as if the plasma had been nothing more than falling rain. The commander's pride cracked. His soldiers felt their courage sink. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. The galaxy had always relied on fear, fear of plasma, fear of overwhelming numbers, fear of destruction. But fear no longer worked. In that moment, for the first time, in centuries, the aliens felt fear not in others but in themselves. The human stopped. His shadow stretched long against the burning ruins framed by fire and smoke. The silence around him was heavier than the plasma storm. He looked at the alien warships as if measuring them, not with terror, but with something worse. Calm. His heartbeat did not race, his hands did not shake, and his breath did not falter. Alien soldiers whispered louder now, their voices breaking. Was this truly a man? Or was this something else? Was this the monster their grandparents had warned them about in hushed stories? The commander barked at them to silence, but his own hands trembled on the crystal controls. The human's eyes glowed faintly under the visor of his helmet, a reflection of the burning sky. He tilted his head, as though listening to something, far beyond the battlefield, something only he could hear. And then, without a word, he smiled. That smile was the final crack in the enemy's spirit. Because it was not the smile of a victim, nor of a desperate man. It was the smile of someone who knew a truth the aliens had not yet learned. Plasma did not matter. Fear did not matter. Humanity had faced worse, survived worse, and in surviving had become something the galaxy could not understand. The silence stretched long, broken only by the hiss of cooling ground and the distant rumble of ruined buildings. Every alien eye was fixed on the man who should have been ash, yet stood alive, untouched and unbroken. For the first time, they realized this battle was no longer theirs to win. It had already shifted, and they had not even noticed. And as the Yao human took his next step, closer to the terrified soldiers, closer to the trembling commander, a single thought passed through their minds. If this was only one human, what else was waiting in the shadows of Earth? The alien commander tried to steady his breath, but the silence pressing down on him was worse than the sound of his own weapons. His fleet had fired everything. Plasma, cannons, shock bursts, atmospheric charges. The human should have been nothing more than a shadow burned into the ground, yet there he stood, smoke curling around his armor like mist around a mountain, calm, still, watching. The soldiers in the front ranks shifted uneasily. Their weapons, once symbols of power, now felt like toys clutched by frightened children. Each second that passed made the air heavier. Some dared to whisper, just faint voices beneath the hum of alien machinery. "What is he?" one asked. "Why does he not fall?" murmured another. The commander snapped at them with a growl, his words sharp like claws. "He is only flesh. He bleeds. Fire again." But his words rang hollow, even to his own ears. The fleet unleashed another storm. Plasma lit the sky like a newborn star, turning the battlefield into a blazing sea. The ground boiled. Buildings disintegrated, rivers turned into steam. And still, when the smoke cleared, the human remained. His armor glowed faint red from the heat, yet his steps were slow and steady. His shadow stretched through the haze, growing longer, larger, more terrifying with every movement. Something unspoken spread among the alien ranks. Legends, myths, stories told by old traders in faraway markets. They spoke of Earth, a world unlike any other. A world where storms tore forests apart, where predators stalked endlessly, where only the strongest could survive. A place so hostile that its children were forged from struggle. Many had dismissed those tales as exaggerations, stories meant to frighten younglings. But now, watching this single human endure fire that could destroy whole cities, the aliens wondered if those legends had been warnings. The commander clenched his hands around the crystal controls, sweat dripping down his scaled skin. He wanted to deny it, to call it impossible. But deep inside, he felt the cold weight of fear pressing on him. He had fought dozens of species, crushed mighty civilizations, burned empires into dust. Yet never before had his hands trembled on the battlefield. Never before had silence frightened him more than screams. The human stopped walking. His helmet tilted upward, his gaze fixed directly on the commander's flagship. For a moment, it felt as though the distance between them vanished. The commander's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel those human eyes piercing through the steel and glass, cutting deeper than any weapon ever could. And then, the human raised his hand. It was a small gesture, almost casual, but the effect was immediate. The alien fleet fell silent. Weapons that had roared moments ago now hesitated. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives to obey suddenly froze, as though invisible chains held them in place. The human didn't fire. He didn't speak. He simply stood with his hand lifted, as if commanding the stars themselves to stop. The silence grew unbearable. One soldier finally broke. His claws shook as he lowered his plasma rifle, his eyes refusing to meet the human's gaze. Another dropped his weapon entirely, the clatter echoing across the ranks. Soon, more followed. Fear spread like fire in dry grass, and all the while, the human said nothing. The commander roared in anger, trying to restore order. "Stand your ground, he is only one man." But his soldiers no longer believed it. The human lowered his hand. Then, slowly, he removed his helmet. Gasps rippled through the alien army. They expected to see a face twisted by pain or scarred by the heat. Instead, they saw calm eyes, steady and cold like the depths of space. His skin was marked with ash, his hair damp with sweat, but his expression carried no fear. Instead, he smiled faintly. That smile shook the commander more than any weapon ever had. It was not the smile of arrogance nor of madness. It was the smile of someone who knew something no one else understood. The smile of a predator, patient and certain. The commander's voice cracked when he finally whispered, "Why does he not fall?" But deep down, he already knew the answer. The plasma was never enough. The fire was never enough. This human stood not because of his armor, nor because of any shield. He stood because his kind was born from struggle. He stood because humanity had never learned how to bow. The alien army now faced a question that no plasma cannon could answer. If one human could withstand their greatest storm without blinking, what would happen when more arrived? And though the stars burned brightly above, for the first time the galaxy felt very, very dark. The battlefield was a graveyard of silence. Smoke rose from shattered stone. The air tasted of ash and burning metal. Yet all eyes were locked on the lone human who refused to fall. The alien commander could no longer hide his unease. His claws tapped nervously against the crystal throne, each sound betraying his slipping confidence. He had unleashed storms of plasma strong enough to melt a world, yet one human stood untouched. The human took another step forward, just one. It was nothing more than a boot pressing against broken earth, but the sound of it echoed louder than cannon fire. The alien soldiers stiffened. Every instinct inside them screamed to retreat, yet none dared to move. The man's shadow stretched long in the glow of fire, tall and unbroken, and it felt as though the very ground bowed beneath him. The commander barked new orders, desperate to reclaim control. "Deploy shock troops, break his armor." Dozens of alien warriors surged forward, claws out, plasma blades glowing in their hands. They were the best fighters of the fleet, strong, fast, merciless. They had butchered entire armies on other worlds. Yet when they reached him, the human did not even raise a weapon. He stood still, letting them come. The first alien struck. A plasma blade cut across his chest. Sparks flew, the heat sizzling against his armor. But the human did not fall. His hand shot out like lightning, gripping the alien's wrist. A sharp twist. Bones cracked like dry branches. The soldier screamed, his weapon dropping, his body collapsing into the dust. The others hesitated. For the first time, hesitation existed where there had only ever been obedience. The human moved again, faster this time. A strike to the chest, another to the throat, a kick that sent a warrior flying into the fire. Each movement was simple, clean, efficient. No wasted energy, no sound, only action. Within moments, the ground was littered with broken bodies, their weapons glowing uselessly in the dirt. The remaining soldiers froze. Fear chained their legs. Their enemy was only one man, yet he had moved through them like a storm through leaves. The commander's voice shook. All units, advance, crush him. But his order carried no weight. No soldier moved. Their eyes betrayed them, wide, trembling, refusing to face the silent figure who now turned his gaze upon them. The human finally spoke. His voice was quiet, steady, yet it rolled across the battlefield like thunder. "Is this all?" The words were simple, but they cut deeper than plasma. The alien ranks shivered. For generations they had been the hunters. They had been the destroyers. Yet in those 3 words they realized the roles had changed. The human began to walk again, slow and unhurried. Each step drew him closer to the enemy line, closer to the commander's throne. The ground seemed to quake beneath his boots, not from power, but from the weight of his presence. Whispers spread like a fever through the alien ranks. "He cannot be killed. He does not fear us. He is something else." The commander's hands trembled openly now. His soldiers no longer looked at him for leadership. They looked only at the human, waiting as though he were the true commander of this field. And then, the sky split. From the horizon, shapes emerged, black and sharp, gliding like shadows against the stars. Human warships. Their hulls were darker than space itself, their edges glowing faintly with energy the aliens did not understand. They moved without sound, without warning, sliding into formation above the battlefield. The alien fleet panicked. Orders were shouted, weapons scrambled online, shields raised in desperation. But even before the first human ship fired, the balance had shifted. Fear had hollowed their courage, and silence had replaced their discipline. The man on the ground lifted his hand once more. And above, as if answering his command, the human fleet lit up. Beams of light cut through the void, slicing across alien ships like knives through paper. Shields collapsed instantly, hulls tore apart, and flames consumed the proud fleet. In minutes, the sky that once burned with alien plasma now burned with their wreckage. The commander watched in horror. Everything he believed in, everything he trusted, fell apart before his eyes. His soldiers stumbled back, their weapons forgotten, their voices broken with terror. The human lowered his hand, his eyes fixed coldly on the commander's ship. He did not need to speak again. His silence was enough. Because in that moment, every alien understood a truth that struck deeper than any weapon. This was no longer their war. The galaxy's balance had shifted, and humanity was no longer prey. The alien commander stared in disbelief as the last of his proud warships split apart in flames. His fleet, the terror of countless worlds, now burned like paper caught in a storm. Pieces of glowing metal fell from the sky, crashing into the ruined ground below. His soldiers stood frozen, weapons limp in their claws, eyes locked on the silent figure who had summoned destruction with nothing more than a raised hand. For the first time in his long career, the commander felt something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not pride. Fear. The human walked steadily through the smoke. Each step made the air feel heavier, as though the battlefield itself bent to his will. He moved with calm purpose, not rushing, not boasting, yet every motion carried weight. The alien soldiers parted without being told, as if some instinct older than reason warned them not to stand in his way. The commander tried to steady his voice. "It is only one man," he whispered to himself, though his trembling hands betrayed him. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The human was not alone. Above the battlefield, more shadows emerged from the stars. The first fleet had already crushed the alien ships, but now others followed. Dozens of vessels, hundreds. Their black hulls shimmered with strange light, weapons glowing faintly with power that made plasma look weak. They moved like predators gliding through water, silent, patient, unstoppable. Alien soldiers gasped as they saw the scale of it. These were not improvised craft or stolen technology. These were machines designed for war, shaped with precision, built with purpose. Their very presence carried a message. Humanity had not only survived, it had prepared. The commander slammed his claws against his throne. "Impossible," he hissed. "No reports, no warnings. How could they build such a fleet without us, knowing?" But even as he said the words, he understood. Humanity had always been underestimated. Other empires had looked down on them, laughed at their small worlds, dismissed their weak numbers. No one thought to watch closely. No one thought to fear. That had been their mistake. On the ground, the human raised his head, eyes reflecting the fire above. His voice carried again, low and steady but filled with certainty. "You thought plasma would end us. You thought fear would control us. But you never understood who we are." His words struck harder than any cannon. The soldiers shifted nervously, their courage crumbling like sand in the tide. They had fought many enemies, rebels, predators, entire civilizations, but never had they faced words that cut deeper than weapons. The human lifted his hand, pointing toward the commander's flagship. At once, one of the massive ships in orbit turned its weapons. A beam of light lanced out, brighter than the sun, tearing through a nearby alien cruiser. The explosion lit the sky in 1,000 burning fragments. The human's calm voice followed. "We build in silence, we endure in silence, and when the storm comes, we answer." The soldiers trembled. Some dropped their weapons entirely. Others fell to their knees, unable to meet his gaze. Even the commander's voice faltered when he tried to roar, "Fight, you cowards!" But his command carried no weight. His troops no longer looked to him for orders. Their eyes were fixed on the human, the one who had survived their fire, broken their blades, and summoned a fleet from the dark. The human stepped closer to the line of alien warriors. His armor, still scorched from plasma strikes, glowed faintly in the reflection of burning wrecks. Yet he looked stronger now, not weaker. Each scar on the metal seemed like a mark of defiance, a reminder of what he had endured. He spoke again, softer this time, but every soldier heard it. You wanted to see what humanity hides. You wanted to test our strength. Now you will learn. It cannot be broken. The commander's hand shook so badly he nearly dropped the control rod. For centuries, his species had ruled through fire and terror. They believed themselves unstoppable. Yet one human had unraveled it all. Not with fear, not with numbers, but with something else. Endurance, patience, unshakable will. The human stopped at the edge of the alien ranks. He did not raise his weapon. He simply looked at them, steady and unblinking. And the truth settled heavy in their hearts. No matter how much fire they unleashed, humanity would endure it. And when the time came, humanity would answer with a fire far greater than plasma. The sky above roared again as more human ships slid into formation. Their dark hulls gleamed like blades, their engines burning with quiet fury. 1,000 silent predators circling, waiting for command. The alien soldiers finally understood. Plasma was nothing. Fire was nothing. Against humanity's hidden strength, all their weapons meant less than ash. And for the first time in generations, the galaxy's conquerors felt the icy grip of defeat. The commander's world had collapsed. His mighty fleet, once the terror of entire star systems, was nothing but burning wreckage falling from the sky. His proud soldiers, trained since birth to obey without hesitation, now trembled like frightened children. And standing at the center of it all was one human, calm, steady, unbroken. The battlefield smelled of smoke and fear. The ground glowed with the scars of plasma fire, yet the man who had endured it all walked forward, step by step, toward the commander's flagship. Each movement was deliberate, slow as though time itself obeyed him. Alien eyes followed his every step, and though none dared to speak, every mind screamed the same truth. The balance of power had shifted. The commander tried to summon rage, but his voice cracked as he shouted, "Stand and fight. He is only one man." But even he no longer believed those words. Above them, the human fleet moved with silent precision. They hovered like shadows carved from the night sky. Their weapons, glowing faintly with power the galaxy had never seen before. Not one ship wavered, not one gun hesitated. They waited patient as though bound to the calm will of the man below. The human stopped at the edge of the alien formation. His visor caught the reflection of fire and broken ships, but his voice was steady when he spoke. You called plasma the end of all wars. You believed fear would rule forever. But fear is a chain, and chains break. His words carried across the battlefield, heavy, inescapable. The alien soldiers lowered their weapons. Some dropped them entirely, letting plasma rifles crash uselessly into the dirt. Others backed away, eyes wide, unwilling to face the calm gaze of a man who had walked through fire without blinking. The commander slammed his fist against his controls. "Cowards!" he spat, but his claws trembled. He turned his eyes toward the human, who now lifted his hand once more. A signal. The sky erupted. Beams of white light lanced from the human ships, striking with precision. Alien warships that still tried to flee were split apart in seconds. There, glowing fragments painting the heavens with trails of fire. The explosions were not drawn-out battles, they were executions. The fleet that had once ruled through terror was now reduced to ash in the time it took to draw a breath. The commander sank into his throne, sweat running down his scaled face. His soldiers no longer listened. They no longer looked at him. There, gazes were locked on the human who had become something more than a man, something larger, something inevitable. The human lowered his hand, and silence fell again. His voice, calm and steady, cut through the smoke. This was never about plasma. This was never about weapons. This was about who could endure, who could rise when the storm fell. He stepped closer to the commander's ship. his boots leaving prints in the scorched ground. His armor, still scarred and glowing from the fire, looked like it had been forged from the battle itself. He paused, raising his head toward the flagship's bridge. And though distance separated them, the commander felt as though those human eyes were staring directly into his soul. "You wanted humanity to fear you," the human said softly. "Instead, you will fear us." The commander's chest tightened. His claws shook against the throne. He had fought countless wars, but never had he felt powerless like this. This was not war. This was judgment. The alien soldiers began to kneel. One by one, they lowered themselves into the ash, bowing their heads, unable to stand beneath the weight of the silence. They were not commanded. They were not ordered. They simply surrendered, their will broken by the truth before them. The human watched, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke a final time, his words like stone carved into the memory of the galaxy. "Remember this day. Humanity does not break. Humanity does not bow. And when you bring fire to our world, we will answer with something far greater." Above, the fleet moved again, slowly drifting into formation like predators circling prey. The alien commander sank deeper into his throne, his body trembling. He knew this war was lost, but worse than that, he knew history itself had changed. For centuries, his kind had been the hunters, the destroyers, the lords of fire. But now, for the first time, they had met prey that did not run, prey that did not fear, prey that had become the true predators. The battlefield fell quiet. Smoke drifted, fires dimmed, and silence stretched across the ruined land. But in that silence, every alien heart carried the same thought. The galaxy had just witnessed something it could never erase. Humanity had endured the storm, and humanity had answered with a reckoning that would echo across the stars for generations. The human turned away at last, walking back through the flames with steady steps, his fleet following above. He did not look back. He did not need to. The message had already been burned into the bones of the galaxy. Plasma could not break them. Fear could not bind them. And from this day forward, humanity would never be forgotten.